This is more than a game. When I first played Death Stranding, I didn't go in with high expectations. I thought it would be another run-of-the-mill AAA game by Sony that had some cool gameplay and story. But as I really started to realize the true meaning of Death Stranding, it changed me. At the time of first playing though, everything felt loud. Social media, news, other games, expectations of myself. It felt like everything wanted my attention, immediately, all the time. Death Stranding didn't do that though. It asked me how to slow down. And at first, I hated it. I'd been so used to playing fast-paced first-person story games, and Death Stranding wasn't that at all. To me, it felt like I had the most boring role in saving the world, walking around and delivering packages. But about 12 hours in, it finally snapped. And I realized the true meaning of this game, and that Sam's story speaks loud even without words. It represents conflict, confusion, anger, and sorrow. And while the story may contain all these elements, it's the gameplay which gets me the most. And sure, the story, it's amazing. It's one of the most profound, amazing stories in gaming history. And I would definitely compare it to the likes of all of Kojima's other works. But something about the gameplay of Death Stranding is so unique. So unique it creates its own feeling, its own mini-universe that actually feels like you have to carry each piece of cargo with Sam along the way. A feeling that somehow never gets old, even after making hundreds of deliveries. When people review single-player video games, they mostly mention the story elements, pacing of the game, and the gameplay, which I believe the gameplay of Death Stranding fails to be mentioned by most people, and it's understandable. They rather talk about the amazing story of the game and how impactful it is. But Death Stranding gameplay was so unique at the time and truly defined the genre of walking simulator. But it's not even just that. It's the solitude and peace you feel while playing Death Stranding. And from someone who entirely plays fast-paced story games that invoke stress and your utmost attention at all times, Death Stranding was one of those experiences that gave me patience. And while at the beginning of the game it could be pretty slow, that's what gave me that discipline and the virtue of patience. For example, before playing Death Stranding, a lot of the games I played felt like this. You run to the objective, you skip dialogue, you fast travel, upgrade, pretty much repeat. And for some people that's not a problem, and for a long time I didn't really see a problem with it. It's fast, efficient, optimized, and it gives you a good gameplay and scaling loop. But after playing so many single-player games, that loop can just feel boring. It lacks the creativity, uniqueness, and all the other elements you expect to see when playing a new single-player game. And suddenly you play Death Stranding where you can't fast travel anywhere, you can't ignore terrain, and you can't rush without falling. It's almost like you can't mash forward and win like all these other games are teaching you to do. Instead, Death Stranding teaches you to slow down, look ahead, plan, and just relax. BTs aren't that dangerous. The mules, not too bad. And with the amazing atmosphere, solitude, and the amazing music that was chosen for this game, it just creates such a perfectly well-crafted experience, and it just makes sense. And one thing that really struck me is after finishing Death Stranding, I suddenly wanted to go back and play some of my other favorite games. Like, for example, Red Dead 2. It's an amazing game with an amazing atmosphere, but I never really took my time to just kind of walk around and appreciate it. But in a way, it's kind of similar to Death Stranding. You can't really fast travel, and you're riding around on a horse from objective to objective. The game's telling you to appreciate the atmosphere, and that's what I went back and did. Because of Death Stranding. One element of Death Stranding that doesn't get talked about much is the social strand system. It's really a unique feature that you never really see in other games thanks to Kojima's willingness to try out other things. Kojima actually presented this idea to his team, and they didn't like it at first because it wasn't competitive enough. But the real point of the social strand system is not about competition. It's the willingness of other players to help those who come after. You don't get much rewards, endorsements, or even a place on a leaderboard. Rather, you do it because you want to. For example, one might place a ladder in a river to aid the next player who might have trouble crossing it. Or a player may put a charging station in the middle of nowhere to help other players get their deliveries done. And while some of these people are purely placing it for their own benefit and may not even think of other players whilst doing it, it still feels the loneliness at times and makes you really think if that person was putting this here to help others. Some structures are definitely placed by other players to help other players, though, since you could see they add music, endorsement signs, and all the other things that would only add to their time if they were doing it just for themselves. Timefall Shelter is a great example of this. It would only add to someone's time and be unnecessary if someone were to craft it and just use it once or twice. And this social strand system is a great example of experimentation in video games. Death Stranding as a whole, the whole entire game is experimental. There's not really any other game of this type that really just has you walking throughout the atmosphere, delivering packages. The social strand system was entirely experimental as well. As I said earlier, people at Kojima's studio didn't exactly like it, they didn't accept it. But because Kojima tried it, and because his studio accepted the idea eventually, it ended up becoming one of the most unique, profound online systems in gaming. And it doesn't invoke a feeling of, I have to be better into players while they're playing. It instead invokes a feeling of, how can I help this person? And I think it really says something about gaming as a whole, because in video games, you're not really expected to help people, especially in competitive video games. And with obviously multiplayer games being very popular as of recently, and lots of PvP involved, this game is almost kind of a break from that. And I'll get onto it more later, but a lot of games now are so demanding of your time, they don't respect your time. They want you to spend hours grinding into it, being the best, being the most competitive. But Death Stranding just says no to that. It could make a competitive system that has tons of different packages, and while it does have one, it doesn't force it in your face. All these other games are trying to see who's the best, who's the better one, and nothing's wrong with that. But Death Stranding just doesn't take that. It instead focuses around you and the other people that help you and almost care about you. Because while this is a story about walking alone, you're not really alone. One thing I've really been waiting to talk about is the atmosphere in Death Stranding. Even though not as visually stunning compared to most modern day games, primarily due to its release date and at the time engine limitations, Death Stranding's scenery and art style still never fails to immerse me in this amazing universe. And as I said earlier, at first I was very bored of the gameplay and didn't really want to take my time to appreciate the scenery as much. But when I first heard Don't Be So Serious by Low Roar come on, it almost kind of snapped for me. So for the first time ever in my experience playing video games, I didn't want to rush through. I wanted to enjoy the song, look around at the mountains, and play with how the light reacts to the camera. Just relax and not stress about something or someone running up on me and potentially ending my run. So it was then here I realized that Death Stranding wasn't about rushing, not about fighting as much, and mostly filled with atmosphere for you just to enjoy. I even started to find myself preferring delivery on foot than by vehicle so I could enjoy the scenery more. And I believe this is how Kojima intended the game to be, a break from all the action, a cutaway from all the killing, and just a general well-crafted experience that respects the player's time and lets them gaze upon a beautiful, well-crafted world. And bringing up the music again, while Death Stranding only really does music cues on story and some side deliveries, the music selection adds to the atmosphere so incredibly well. And if I haven't played Death Stranding, I would have never discovered my favorite artists and opened up to new music genres. And one thing I realized while making this video is how it's so hard to explain the atmospheric feeling to people who have never played Death Stranding before. So if you haven't played, I'll just play a little clip so you can see for yourself the solitude and peace of this game. While that might not have seemed like much for most, it really starts to grow in you after you spend a couple hours in the game. I encourage all of you who haven't played Death Stranding, who are watching, to please go give it a try. Even just besides the gameplay, it's truly an impactful experience, and if I wanted to talk about the story, that'd have to be a whole nother video. And while I could go on for hours talking about how beautiful and unique the gameplay of Death Stranding is, it all comes down to one thing, and that it's all about you. You being the player, and not just Sam, of course, but when I mean all about you, I mean how this game can be personalized in so many different ways. Remember how I said I sometimes prefer going on foot than sometimes truck? That's a preference. The game doesn't tell you that you need to rush. The game doesn't tell you that you need to go faster. The game doesn't tell you that you need to go further. You can play in whatever way you want. And I think that's the real beauty of the gameplay. Not just the atmosphere, not just the social strand system, or any of the features. It's how you can personalize your own experience to such an extent that you don't feel like you're rushed. You don't feel like you have to stress about something ending your run in mere seconds. You don't have to dread repeating boring dialogue, and you could spice up your deliveries with whatever variety you please. And that's the real uniqueness of Death Stranding's gameplay. I really thank you guys for tuning in today for this little mini video essay of the unique gameplay of Death Stranding. It was really fun to create a video like this, and I'd love to do more videos like this on my channel in the future and focus on just kind of showing the hidden beauties of video games in a way. As a first video on my channel, I kind of rushed to get it out in a way, but I think it's not too bad. Thank you guys for watching though, and I hope you'll have a great one, and please try out Death Stranding if you haven't.